World War II shaped the lives of a generation. The war broke families apart, brought communities together, and turned a depressed economy into an industrial machine. On the home front, citizens sold war bonds and collected scrap metal for the factories. Friends were made and lost as a generation of boys was sent into combat. Penn State Public Broadcasting invited those who lived this history to share their stories of World War II.
Well, they drafted me, and I had a twin brother, and he went out of school. He enlisted, but I waited till I was drafted. At that time, they wouldn't put brothers together and kind of the Solomon brothers all getting lost that time on the ship. I went to, we left Oceanside, Long Island, and we went to Gorey, Scotland, and then they drove us down to Salcombe, England, and from there we went to Normandy. The Gorey part, you know, there was a lot of dead soldiers and Marines and parachutists, you know. But to my mind, the worst thing I saw was an LCI took an 88 shell and just fried 167 soldiers in there. And that stench was so bad, and they didn't take them out for about 3 or 4 days, and they had the German go in there without masks on to remove the bodies. It was terrible. Oh, I can smell it today. Sickening. Nothing worse than burnt human flesh. See, I'm a beach party. We set up ship to shores and information, directed what roads. Well, there was only one road out of Red Beach in Omaha. Told them where to go up the roads, blew out the obstacles in the water, etc. We went in on the second wave, you know, and then they dropped the coxswains, the poor coxswains. They're up in after the small boats going in. They got their heads down too, you know, gunnels. As soon as they hit a sandbar in there, that's what happened. They thought they were on the beach, and they dropped the ramps, and these soldiers would go off in maybe 20 feet of water with their 40, 60-pound pack on their back, and it would. I would say, on our beach alone, with Red Beach, Omaha, on Omaha Red Beach, there had to be a couple hundred drownings on that beach. Well, my wife was in the hospital having our first child, so I had two problems when I went into Normandy, worrying about her and worrying about myself. She had it May 29th. Well, it was almost 10 days before I got any mail. Some of our outfit, when they left Normandy, went right back to England, they knew before I did, my friends. A lot of things going on, the time passed, but you still are worrying about her, you know. Well, we left Salcombe, England. We went back for R&R after Normandy. And it was probably a month we come back. Then after that, we went out to Pacific. Then it was almost 2 years for us over again. Meantime, we was over there. I was over there for about a week on the beach, and I got a letter, and my mother had told me he was going into Normandy also. So when I went to Naval Command Post and asked if they had any idea where these engineers were, you know. So they got information. He was in St. Mary de Glees. He's probably about 3 or 4 miles from me. And I went up and I asked where the Raymond Singer was, and he said down there in his pup tent. Well, his feet were sticking out of his pup tent, sleeping, you know. And I grabbed a hold of his feet, and he jumps up. He said, "What the hell are you doing here?" I said, "Yeah, what am I doing here?" Yeah. He forgot I was in the Navy. He never thought I'd see me aboard on land, you know. Well, I was setting up the charges to blow these obstacles out of the water. But I was an electrician. I did the plunger. I set it off. I wasn't under the water. In fact, when I went to amphibious school down in Norfolk from Sampson, New York, I told them, if you put me in the submarine, you will shoot me right now because I'm not going. Oh, no, I'm just claustrophobic. So they put me in amphibious, you know. Aboard ship, we had time in between our docks and stuff. I was aboard ship. I was a boxer for the Navy on the board ship. we'd box Marines or soldiers or other sailors, just to pass the time away. They got tired of looking at movies. The referee was the minister. As far as the Navy, it was tough in the Navy. You're just sitting there like a duck sitting there in the water. It's like when we went to Okinawa up there at the kamikazes are coming over, and the USS Hope, that's a hospital ship. They took one right down in the middle of their stack. It didn't sink the ship, but it damaged it. They had to leave. And my ship, we had a captain, full four-striper. He was he fouled up and he was on an aircraft carrier. And he fouled up and they demoted him and put him on our ship, which was we were the flagship because he had a full four stripes on. As far as the transports were. When I was over in France, I was in a carpool, so they had me, lieutenant. He was an actor on the stage in some kind in New York, so he somehow got a hold of a Jeep and wanted me to take him to Cherbourg. Well, I volunteered to take him to Cherbourg. We went to Cherbourg, and they were still fighting in Cherbourg. So I told him, hey, we get out of there. But from there to Cherbourg, the Germans had these big open fields, and they had posts about that high, but that big around on all the open fields, So when the gliders come down, they can't go back up. They took a beating, the paratroopers, the glider pilots. It was terrible. I bet you I've seen a couple hundred gliders crash. Yeah, well, glider he's gliding. When he comes down, he has to land. And when he landed, they had all these posts set in these open fields, and and the gliders are only made out of plywood, so they just disintegrated. Well, everybody went crazy, and then everybody was figuring out if you was married, you had points, which was good for me. I was married. Had overseas, you had your ribbons. You had it was about 4 or 5 things you had, and they had them up. If you got so many points, you was discharged. I was discharged, and I come back into back to the West Coast in San Francisco, and I was there about 2 weeks by billet number to come back to Sampson to be discharged. But in the meantime, the captain said, hey, they called me Singer. Hey, Singer, we're leaving here. We're going down through Suez Canal and back up to Philadelphia. I said, I'm getting off now. Or Panama Canal, not the Suez Canal, Panama. They didn't know I was coming home. I surprised them.
Oh, yeah.
I went to Sampson, New York, and got discharged. And I came by bus and surprised them right before Christmas. With my twin brother, he hadn't got home because he wasn't married and he didn't have all the sea duty, so he was a couple months getting home after I got home. There was 2 things I'll say. I didn't get a tattoo, which I promised my mother, and I never got a wound.